What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a long-awaited return of Eye on the U. It's been a little while. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined by our University of Miami sports writer, Jordan McPherson. Uh, we had a long hiatus, not a planned hiatus, just kind of went away from this for a little while, but we decided we have to come back. We have to come back. The Canes are having one of their best seasons in recent memory, probably the best season since this place was still open. And it wasn't a baseball stadium. Since before that even, I can tell you right now, Jordan, this is probably the deepest team and has the potential to be the best team since guys like Ken Dorsey and Andre Johnson and guys like that were walking around campus probably because the Hurricanes are off to a very good, not only the 5-0 start. We've seen 9-0, we've seen 10-0. But this feels a little different, doesn't it, Jordan? This feels like it has a little more quality, a little more substance to it, a little more staying power. This team's number 2 in the country, and again, has been in recent years, but it just feels a little more legit this year from what we've seen so far. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, again, this is my second year on the beat. Last year, obviously, they started off 9-0, and then we just saw how everything collapsed at the end. This year, the 5-0 start, it just, like you said, it's different. They have 3 ranked wins already. The Notre Dame game, the season opener, which was my big test going into the season. The win against USF, the win last week against Florida State, and then even the win against Florida, you got to give that a lot of weight now too, especially after the Gators beat Texas last week, which you look at Miami's resume at this point, 3 ranked wins, a win over a Florida team that beat Texas, which right now is the biggest win on Ohio State's resume, the only team above them in the AP poll. Right. So if you look at this resume as a whole, it's a very, very strong start to the season. They've done it in just about every way. Carson Beck has had some moments. The run game has had some moments. The defense, which was the Achilles heel last year, has had some moments. They haven't had to have any of those miraculous 20-point comebacks like they had to do scrambling around last year where Cam Ward had to basically play the hero just to keep their season alive. It's been a very balanced team. You mentioned the depth. You're seeing so many different guys step up on a week-to-week basis, and they're doing it against a lot higher competition early this season than the team last year saw basically at any point in the year. Right. So it's a very strong start. The 5-0 is very noteworthy, and now it's a matter of seeing what they can do with the rest of the way as they get into the heart of conference play.
Well, they've won in different ways, and that, I think, was on display against FSU. I mean, we're sitting there first quarter and coming off the win over the Gators where they basically just pounded the rock the whole game, ran the ball, controlled everything on the ground. And then we're like, okay, why aren't they doing that to the Seminoles? And then, to FSU's credit, they started to stop it a little bit in the first half. But guess what? Beck lights them up. They start with the passing game. And we've seen it as, once again, Malachi Toney, unbelievable start to his career at Miami. And again, we're seeing that it's almost like we've seen that more and more in college football with true freshmen making an immediate impact. You saw it at Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, a guy who almost came to Miami, picked the Buckeyes, and he turned out to be a huge star as he is now. Well, Malachi's doing something similar right now. He comes in first drive, gets the first score of the season. Not a fluke, keeps it going. Last week, 2 big touchdowns. That's the thing. Like, you're starting to see finally all the classes that have been recruited here by Mario Cristobal and his staff. They're starting to be impactful players. The guys are in positions now. But like you said, the depth. I mean, to me, I'm impressed with the offensive line, of course, because up front, everything starts there. They finally look solid where they can really push a team around. And I don't know if they were able to do that in recent years as much. That's what you need to beat the big-time teams, to beat the elite in the country, not just in the ACC, but overall. Like the Ohio States, let's say, the Oregons, whoever you're going to end up facing down the road, potentially, if you want to win a national title, you have to be good up front. You have to last up front and be able to win. That's why you're able to win, throwing it, airing it out, or on the ground, pounding it the way they did against Florida. But defense been a breath of fresh air this year to see a team not just, not be able to stop anybody. Like, now you have a team that can stop drives, that can create turnovers. It's not just constant shootout, like you were saying. I mean, the FSU game at the end, they kind of let their guard down, gave up a bunch of points, but Let's be honest. That game honestly should have been maybe like 35-10, something like that. Maybe you give up a garbage score or something like that. And that's maybe the little thing so far where you want to see them do a little better job of is maybe, I know that's one of the topics we were going to talk about was just, game management, finishing games late, something to work on with the team. But, before that, against Notre Dame, they close out, they have the comeback, they get the victory. So just something to kind of tweak there, of course. But I think all in all, this team, first time since 1987 that they beat their three biggest rivals in the same season, beat Notre Dame, the Gators, and the Seminoles. And obviously they didn't schedule them that early, so packed before, like all three of them in the first 5 games. But to their credit, that's remarkable. I know that some people are like, oh, Notre Dame's got 2 losses. They're not as good as we thought they'd be. And the Gators have 3 losses. You know what? It's still, those are pressure-packed games against rivals that you have to win. And to their credit so far, they have.
Yeah, and just say that with the Notre Dame having 2 losses, their 2 losses, the number 2 team in the country, Miami, by 3 points. The number 5 team in the country, Texas A&M, by 1 point. So you're going to have 2 losses by a combined 4 points, and they're happen to be the 2 of the 5 best teams in the country.
Not bad.
I'd still consider that a pretty damn good win in my book.
Right.
But to try to go bit by bit with a lot of what you just said over the last couple of minutes, the lines of scrimmage in general, both offensive line and defensive line, that's this team's bread and butter. That's how Mario Cristobal has created this team. Again, as a former offensive lineman, of course, that's going to be where he focuses on everything. The Hurricanes live and die with their success in the trenches. We saw the offensive line last year take a big step forward. We're seeing it even more now that basically that entire group outside of their center is back. I mean, Francis Malinois, right tackle, is one of the best offensive linemen in the country. Should be a first-round pick going into the draft next year. Wouldn't be surprised if he's a top half of the first-round draft next year. Inez Cooper has been a starter at right guard for basically his entire career. Left guard, we're finally seeing Matt McCoy is starting again, but we're also seeing Samson Okunlola, who's a 5-star recruit a few years back, finally crack that rotation. McCoy and Okunlola are splitting reps at left guard. We're seeing that guy who waited his turn, Samson Okunlola, finally get his opportunity, finally show that he can contribute. And then at left tackle, when you have a guy who's 6'9" like Markel Bell, that's just a boost. And the fact that he's learned how to play at his size has been a very big advantage for him. And then James Brockermeyer, their 3rd consecutive year with a transfer starter at center, he's holding his own. He's had a few issues here and there. The floor game he had 3 different penalties with snap alignment and whatnot, but overall he's held his own. And then when you go to the defensive line, we're finally getting to see Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor both healthy at the same time. And it was just a matter of what will they look like when they're both healthy. Because remember, 2 years ago, Bain's freshman year, Mesidor missed basically the entire season with the injuries to both his feet. Last year, Bain gets hurt in the first drive against Florida, comes back mid-season, but we all know he wasn't 100%. So now that you have both of these guys who are just absolute beasts on the edges and also can move inside on pass rushing downs, they have just been making opponents' lives living nightmares in the backfield. I mean, the 2 of them combined for, I believe, about a handful of sacks. They're winning close to 30% of their pass rushing snaps. They are probably the best 1-2 punch on the defensive line in college football so far this year. And they both know how good they are. They basically have been bouncing off each other for 3 years now, and to finally see them unleash that together in a game setting has been a boost to this defense, which we also give Corey Heatherman a lot of credit, the new first-year defensive coordinator here. The way he's having this group attack and just have them swarm the ball. I mean, every time you see a play, you see 5, 6, 7 guys all around whoever has the ball by the end of the play. Everybody just has a knack for knowing where the ball is. And when they're wreaking havoc up front, the secondary, which is completely revamped from last year, is just they're able to make plays. They're not under as much pressure. They're able to do a little bit better in one-on-one situations, and they're able to handle their coverage assignments a little bit better. And you've seen the improvement already. Their defense is ranked in the top 25 in almost every meaningful category through the first 5 weeks. And again, with the schedule they've played, it's been a very solid start for them. And the offense, we've mentioned all the different weapons. Malachi Toney, best freshmen so far in the country to start the year. Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown, the running back, have been a fantastic 1-2 punch. CJ Daniels, the transfer in from LSU, feels like he makes a ESPN Sports Center top 10 play once a week. I mean, the one-handed grab against Notre Dame, I still don't know how he did that.
Yep.
It's just absolutely mind-boggling. But like you said, the talent is there. You can look at the two deep and go, okay, the number one guy's out. Oh, this number two guy easily could have been the starter at almost every position. And that's something that Mario Cristobal, it took him till year 4 to get there, but he finally has stacked talent at just about every position, which has been the ultimate goal. And we know how he is as a recruiter, and the fact that he's able to get that talent and now see that talent succeed has been what this team has been building toward for these past 4 years.
Well, I remember talking with you about this last year when we were talking about this team at the point where they were still undefeated and what it would take to win an ACC title. But I think we kind of honed in a little bit on that, but we were still kind of like the playoffs were kind of a what if national championship, what if. Now I feel like it's more legit. It's more of a reality because of what we're talking about, because we said it, teams that have won national titles in recent memory, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, they have it that way. They have that stacked depth at pretty much every spot. It's a must. You have to have it to win in college football. And Miami has finally gotten to the point where you can make the case that they have it at this point, which is why, for the first time in a long time, it finally really, truly feels like they have a legit chance to compete for a national title here. I mean, the U back thing's been thrown around for years. I think it finally is. I mean, obviously, they want to cement that with a championship. They got to start. Obviously, they got to start first with a conference title, which they've never had, and really get there, because the one time they did, they were embarrassed by Clemson. They weren't even, and that's why I bring up the undefeated starts, because that was that season of 10-0, slipped up at the finish line at Pitt, and then got embarrassed by Clemson. So it kind of delegitimized a little bit that team back then. But this team doesn't look like something like that could happen, and a lot of it is because of what we keep talking about. Down the defensive side, the secondary is just a lot better, and seeing guys like Jacoby Thomas last week at that pick. I mean, I know pressure helped create that, but reminded me of Ed Reed sitting back there playing center field a lot of times and just, bringing a pass down. And it's just different. This is different than last season when they were just getting gashed all the time.
Yeah, no, and again, with last year as well, that was a fun year. I mean, just when we were able to watch what the offense did, Cam Ward obviously lighting it up, setting the record, setting basically every single season record, getting his way to being a Heisman finalist and the number 1 overall pick, the comebacks, all of that, yada, yada, yada. But it was all that entire season, just every time we were just on our heels of, okay, when is the comeback? When is the magic going to run out? And it ultimately did. The Georgia Tech game where they ran basically the exact same play every single snap because Haynes King had a busted up arm. So they just ran the ball and ran it again and ran it again. And Miami couldn't stop it. And the offense finally couldn't come back from a 10-point deficit.
Right.
And then go forward a couple more weeks. Syracuse, 21-0 lead, 3-touchdown lead in a game where if you win, you're going to Charlotte for the ACC championship game. And they blew it.
Right.
So it's just that season was, despite all the magic, despite all the fun, there was always just that holding of the breath of waiting for the shoe to drop.
Right.
I haven't felt that this year. I mean, last week we were joking about in the press box in the fourth quarter when FSU just started going, when FSU started mounting that comeback. They scored 19 unanswered. The offense got stagnated. The defense got absolutely gassed, which, I mean, when you look at how quickly FSU runs its offense, I mean, I broke down the numbers. It was a 10-play drive in about 2 minutes of game clock, a 16-play, 96-yard drive in about 5 minutes of game clock, and then a 6-play drive with about, when they're under the 2-minute warning, in less than a minute of game clock. If your defense is on the field that long for that many plays, it's going to get gassed. But if you look at the 3 quarters before that, where they held an FSU offense that averaged 600 yards and 50-plus points per game, to a field goal on their first drive only, and then 7 straight drives of punts or turnovers, that to me was more of a statement of what this defense is than what we saw in the fourth quarter. The main problem that I had in the fourth quarter was, and we saw it a little bit, was just the game management on the offensive side. We saw it in Notre Dame. They went up by 14. FSU, Notre Dame ties it up, and then Miami goes conservative on its final drive, knowing that it wants to kick a field goal. And they kicked the field goal against Notre Dame. They still gave Fighting Irish about a minute and a half of clock to potentially win the game.
Right. And that's the thing.
Yeah, and we see with FSU, they get down there after FSU got within, I think they got within 9. They get a first down. They get the fourth down. They're in field goal range. You kick a field goal, it's 12 points. You make FSU have to get 2 touchdowns in less than a minute. They go for it on 4th and 8, turnover on downs, give FSU life. They need to figure that part out at the end. That's been their biggest potential Achilles heel so far.
I feel like even before that, I feel like don't like why are you taking your foot off the gas type of thing? Like, and that's why I came up with the 35-10 score. To me, that's what it should have been. Okay, FSU gets something back. It says a 28-10. You see teams do this all the time. All right. Then you run your same standard playbook, score again, and kill this team. Like finish them like that. And that's the one thing. Like I wish I could see more of Miami do down the stretch, especially now they're going to face every team left that they're going to be favored against. Put the stake in the heart. Like don't hold back. You know, just because you're up, even if you're up 25, don't let up, because then this happens. I never felt like FSU was going to complete the job and come back. It was more of like, great. Now you've let this team back in the door. And now the game's going to end like 28-26. And everyone's going to look at the score and be like, oh, whoever didn't watch the game is going to think it wasn't even close.
Exactly.
It was a dominant performance for 3 quarters and change. And you just let that look a little ugly at the end by this sloppy final 10 minutes. No, like finish them off like that. And that's what you want to see, I guess, down the stretch. And there's still time, and hopefully they can get that. But I guess the slightly worrisome part is that we've seen this over and over in the past, and you hope it's just not the MO for this team, and we're going to keep seeing that tendency. But maybe it'll work itself out. But all in all, the team is much improved, like we've been talking about. What do you think just about? I mean, I know he doesn't have to go around making playground plays and broken plays and turning them into highlight reels, but Carson Beck every week, accuracy is through the roof. Efficient performances week in and week out so far this season. How do you think he's handled it, coming over? I mean, a lot. I think it's what they need. He's done exactly what they've needed.
Yeah, no, my biggest concern, I've said this a few times with other things I've talked with or written about. My biggest concern with Carson Beck was when he came in with everything that was going to be on him, with deciding to stay in college for another year, with wanting to prove himself after the injury, with following up Cam Ward and everything he did. I thought that Carson Beck was going to come in here and try to play the hero as often as he could, similar to what Cam Ward had to do. He hasn't. He has gone in there. He has made the plays that he has to make. He hasn't tried to do anything extracurricular. He hasn't tried to do anything flashy. He's just going in there and leading the offense the way that it's need to be led. He's not trying to be the hero. And when you have an offensive line that gives you all day to throw, when you have running backs who are able to get 4 or 5 yards every single play, and you're able to just grind out long drives, when you have receivers who are able to make the plays that you need them to make, you don't have to be the hero. And when you have a defense that isn't forcing you to play from behind and have to rally, you don't have to be the hero. And for his part, that's been parlaying into a successful season without him having to overdo anything. I mean, entering this week, he's completed 73.4% of his passes. Among quarterbacks who have had at least 100 pass attempts, that's 7th in college football. So he's 102 for 139, 73.4% completion rate, 1,213 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. That's the key number there. Yeah. This offense just needs to keep limiting the turnovers and find the ways to figure out what the offense needs to do on any given week. And if the defense is showing that they're exposed to the run, hey, Mark Fletcher, take the ball. Hey, Marty Brown, take the ball.
Right.
If you see stuff over the middle, hey, Malachi Toney, just run your crossing route. If they know that they can expose the deep ball, CJ, go long.
Right.
Or Keelan Marion, go long. Just find the weakness. May not figure out right away, but take those first drive or two to really start feeling things out and then just whatever you see as your advantage, just take it and pound that play over and over until the defense forces you to change. We've seen that over the first 5 games. Notre Dame was a little bit of everything. Florida was very run heavy. FSU was very pass heavy. The USF game ended up being a little bit of both. They've shown they can win with different ways of the offense succeeding. And that's been a very solid look for this team through 5 games.
And I think 2 of those picks were in the USF game, right? If I'm not mistaken. So, for the most part, he's been pretty efficient throughout the season so far. In that USF game, hour and a half long lightning delay too, that they had to handle, kind of, come back, get the momentum back, and they handled that perfectly. Ended up being a rout of the Bulls in that game. So we'll see. I mean, this team right now, we wanted to take a look at kind of the road so far and the road ahead for this team in the ACC, which right now the Hurricanes are one of 5 teams that are still undefeated in conference play. They are joined by Virginia, Duke. We're both 3-0 in the conference so far. Georgia Tech, that Jordan mentioned earlier, 2-0 in the conference so far. And then SMU has only played 1 conference game, but they're 1-0 right now. Now, Miami faces SMU on November 1st in Dallas, so that will take care of that as far as the Hurricanes are concerned. But the other 3, Miami does not face. So, but there's a chance, and we had spoken about this a while back, there's a chance that Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia could all end up undefeated at the end of the season as far as conference play goes, which could create an interesting tiebreaker scenario, which, not to alarm Canes fans, the Hurricanes would be fine in such a scenario, being that if Miami runs the table, they will be the highest ranked team. But then, is it Virginia or is it Georgia Tech? I'll let you tell everybody what you found out, Jordan.
Yeah, so I mean, the tiebreaker scenarios, again, you have to get really in the weeds when everyone's 8-0, because the first tiebreakers are, okay, head-to-head. Well, no, there's no head-to-head. Then it's, okay, overall records. Then it's overall records against opponents. If everyone's undefeated, everyone's undefeated. So the records sort of narrow down to opponents' conference record or overall record of the opponents you faced. So they would have to basically look through the records of each of the teams that they played in conference play to sort of whittle things down. Right. Obviously, it's too early to tell with everything. You got to see how the season plays out. But looking at the schedules, you would think, again, I would think Miami's in there, but Georgia Tech, Virginia, we got to see how their conference schedules sort of slide out. But you look at the 2 teams overall, Georgia Tech has just looked absolutely phenomenal. They upset Clemson a couple weeks back. Haynes King is just one of my favorite guys to watch in college football. Just He's able to make plays with his leg. He's able to make some big passes when he has to. They just seem like a very balanced team. They were one of my dark horse teams coming into the season for the ACC. Right.
And Georgia Tech, real quick, the only other team that's undefeated overall right now in the ACC other than Miami.
Correct. Yeah. And then Virginia's made a statement so far this year. I mean, I had them toward the bottom of my standings coming in, but they upset FSU on that Friday night before Miami went and faced them. They beat Louisville in overtime last week. They are starting to look like the makings of a legitimate contender. So it's going to be fun to watch all of this go down. But it's also just a reminder of just how different the league looks considering what we thought was going to be coming in. Clemson's just fallen off the face of the earth. I mean, they lost the Louisville game. They lost or LSU game. My apology. They lost LSU at the beginning of the year. They lost to Georgia Tech. They just haven't looked like themselves. Their offense has gone nowhere. SMU, yes, they have the 1 win in conference play so far, but they lost in overtime to Baylor. They lost on the road to TCU. This was a team that I thought would have a chance to potentially compete with Miami to be for the battle between number 2 and number 3. I picked Clemson to win the ACC in the preseason. But you see, Miami right now on paper looks like the clear-cut number 1. Georgia Tech, if I had to put my money on it, I would have Georgia Tech as my number 2 team, which also sets up yet another interesting dynamic for Miami, considering how those last 2 matchups have happened the last 2 years. Don't really think we need to talk about what happened back in 2023 again, how that derailed that season. Right. And then last year losing to them on the road. You have a loss at home against them in 2023, a loss in 2024 on the road. You would have a chance for some vengeance in a neutral site on the biggest stage if that were to happen that first weekend in December. But again, that's getting ahead of ourselves right now.
Are you saying this story is going to write itself and it's going to be Miami and Georgia Tech just because of all that history?
Well, you're assuming it hasn't already pseudo been pre-written just in case it does happen after.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. These things tend to have a way of pre-writing themselves, sort of.
Again, a lot of so many different stories. I mean, there would have been, if it was SMU, it would have been obviously everything with Brett Lashley and looking at just all the transfers who went over there and how they were able to succeed the first 2 years. If it was / is Georgia Tech, we have that angle. If it's Clemson, it would have been, can Miami finally prove they're the top team by beating the team that has been the top for so long? Just all the different angles sort of write themselves depending on who they face. It's just a matter of, first and foremost, Miami actually getting there. And they still have 7 more conference games they have to play in order to get there.
Right. Well, Georgia Tech this weekend hosts Virginia Tech. And then after that, on October 18th, a big one for them against one of those other conference unbeatens as of now. They're at Duke. So that'll be a good indicator right there. And then they have Syracuse. They face NC State, just like Miami does. They have a trip to Boston College late in the year, cold weather game probably at that point. They host Pitt. Pitt is still, they're 1-1. They don't want to say they're completely out of the picture there either, and they have a good quarterback. Even though they replaced their quarterback, and now the quarterback that's there now also seems to be pretty good. Seems like Pitt's going to have an influence when it comes to whoever settles all of this in the end. Because, look, they're facing Georgia Tech. They host Miami at the end of the season. Whether they get in or not, Pitt's going to have a say in who makes the ACC title game from the looks of this.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting to watch everything down the road. And then, I mean, again, we still have to look at what Miami has ahead as well. I mean, they've got the bye week this week. Then they're facing Louisville on a Friday night at home, which, again, those Friday night games are always tricky. Just ask Florida State.
Well, it's the whole bye week tendency coming off the bye week thing that's been documented to death in the past about the way Miami responds after a bye week. This team, we keep saying, is different. Yeah. So let's see if they really are different. How do they handle this? And they already did. Yeah. Coming off the bye week after Florida.
They did coming off the bye week off Florida, going to Florida State, and they won both times last year as well. So that was the first time they've moved past that narrative. But so they host Louisville and Stanford. Then that month of November, again, remember, FSU
first trip out of the state.
Yeah, FSU was the first road game, and then they don't go out of, and then they go out of the state for SMU. 3 of their final 5 games are out of the state on the road after having basically their entire schedule at home or at minimum in the state leading up to it. At SMU, home Syracuse, home NC State, and they finish back-to-back on the road with Virginia Tech and Pitt. On paper, yes, Miami's going to be favored in every game the rest of the way. But it's a matter of, do they handle all the different elements that they aren't having to face right now with their schedule being as home-heavy as it is? That's the one question mark on just the external factors that are going to be going into this.
Yeah, interesting if Georgia Tech does sit there on the doorstep. They face Georgia, as they always do, in their final game. It's non-conference, but still, that's a game that could beat them up a little bit before a conference title game, potentially. That's a hard one there for them. But yeah, looking at Miami's road, some games have that trap, hiccup potential like we talked about, which, can happen to any team. But on paper, they will be, like, that's why I said, they will be favored in every game left. How do they handle that status? It's like they got through that wave of 5 games, the 3 ranked teams, the 3 rivals. And now it's a matter of finishing both within games and overall as a season, Miami getting there. So, I mean, when you look at the schedule, it looks that way, but the playoff field looks pretty wide open at this point. It doesn't look like anybody. I mean, I still would say Ohio State, the defending champions, they're still extremely talented. They're still beating up on everybody. But look how from one week to the next, other things can change. I mean, everyone was ready to crown Oregon after they win that game against Penn State, and now Penn State turns around and gets beat by a lowly UCLA winless squad. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I mean, talent's there in a lot of these teams, but who's to say Miami can't make a run in this field this season? I mean, and the way a lot of the forecasters right now have Miami projected as the 1 seed in the playoffs, not just making it, but as the top seed overall. And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, just it's based off of their resume to this point. Yeah. They're the only team in college football with 3 wins over ranked opponents. Right. Ohio State's best win right now, Texas in week 1, who just lost to Florida last week. And Oregon's best win right now, Penn State, which We have seen what has happened. Hey,
right.
You look at some of the other teams. You've got Ole Miss who has a win over LSU. Texas A&M and Oklahoma's resumes, the 5 and 6 teams in the AP poll, they're pretty stacked so far. I mean, A&M has the win over Notre Dame. They have a couple other big SEC wins. Oklahoma the same. Indiana has low-key been impressive. I know they're up to number 7 in the AP poll. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Columbus, who gave Miami a run for their money last year when he was at Cal.
Yeah.
He's leading that Indiana offense right now, and they're going to have a big matchup this week.
I was about to say that we're going to find out a lot about Indiana this week, going to Eugene and facing Oregon.
We get Indiana, Oregon this week. We get Ohio State, Illinois this week. It's two very big conference matchups for them that we're going to get to see this week. There's going to be some very interesting moves at the top, but again, even with that, that's really only 7 or 8 teams right now. It's a 12-team field.
Red River rivalry this weekend too. I mean, I'm just saying Oklahoma's the favorite, but those are those crazy rivalry games. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of moving parts, a lot more moving parts than we thought, especially when you consider Texas doesn't really seem in the picture right now. Penn State's not in the picture. Clemson's not in the picture. That's three of your top 5 teams in the preseason that are basically already done. So it opens the door for so many other teams that maybe they've been right on the outside looking or have surprised so far through the first third plus of the season to be able to get everything. And that's why the 12-team playoff is what it is. It's making it so that we have so many different permutations, so many different possibilities. And now the games are being played and some of those top teams aren't living up to the preseason expectations. We're starting to see some teams that we may not have thought about coming into the year that have a chance to make it into the playoffs.
Right. A&M impressed me after those first few weeks because I saw them offensively. They look great. Marcel Reed looks like a tremendous quarterback for them. But I worried because they seem to be one of those teams that gave up a lot of points. They reminded me a little bit of Miami last year in the early going, but then they come out, they win that game over Notre Dame, and they've been impressive. But then again, now they have the Gators at home. They have to handle that. I mean, they're the favorite, no doubt, but the Gators are coming off that win over the Longhorns, upset-minded again. So again, it's like week to week, you just can't completely. Teams have to take care of business, and you have to kind of wait and see how everything plays out. But this road will be interesting for Miami for sure because this year, as we know, the Orange Bowl obviously is in play for a quarterfinal this year if Miami were to get to the playoff. And then, of course, Monday night, January 19th, national title will be decided right here in South Florida at Hard Rock Stadium. So one can dream, I guess, if you're a UM fan, and one can look way ahead, way further than they should right now. They got to keep this, narrow the focus and keep winning these ACC games, of course. Exactly. But it'll be an interesting road for sure to see how not only for Miami, but how college football overall, how it plays out. But and
it's going to be a fun ride with all that. And just want to throw out one other possibility. Let's just hypothetically, Miami does slip up one game. They get the 5 to 8 seed. That means they would host a first-round playoff at Hard Rock, could potentially play the Orange Bowl in the quarterfinal, and potentially make it to a national championship game that is at Hard Rock. They could have a 4-game playoffs road with 3 of those games on their home turf. That's unfathomable to even think about. That's Jordan, unfathomable. I know.
I know I was the one on this conversation that was alive back then, but 1983 right there. Yeah. 1987 right there. Yeah. 91 right there. Yeah. Would be pretty incredible that, well, let me do the quick math. Would be 34 years later, almost. No, 34 years later. 34. Another whole national title. Okay, enough of that. Nobody wants to hear that yet. They have to win. They haven't even gotten to the freaking ACC championship game yet. So let's let Miami fans worry about that one step at a time. The vomit in your mouth moment is that they might have to root for the Gators to keep winning in order to boost that value of that victory as well for tiebreaker purposes and whatnot.
And also considering a lot of the opponents that UF faces are teams that could be potentially Miami competing in the standings.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like no Hurricanes fan wants to hear that, but they should root for the Gators the rest of the way because it'll probably help out in multiple ways for their status should Miami keep rolling. But overall, Jordan and I are back, and we're going to be bringing you shows throughout the rest of the season, to keeping up with these Canes and how everything's doing. And we'll probably take a look in the coming weeks at the UM basketball teams, plural, as they start to get ready for their respective seasons pretty soon. Before you know it, it'll be time to tip it off. Less than a month before the Miami teams tip it off. I know their exhibition games are coming up at the end of the month, and then they'll jump into it early November as always. So we'll be back with Eye on the U, and we're glad to be back. Remember, catch us on YouTube or at MiamiHerald.com. For Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the college football.